So, for the first time ever, I am on screen with my son, James, and
We put Brandon in the trunk.
where he belongs. And we decided that we wanted to talk about a video game franchise that we both love for different reasons across different eras. And of course, that is The Legend of Zelda.
Da 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 da. I did it.
Triforce Tuesday. So, Wayback Machine, 1986 or so, my dad, his grandfather, Jim III, bought the very first NES for our family. And unlike most people who bought the package with the Super Mario game, my father bought the system with the cheat guide, a big magazine that told you how to complete games, but it didn't actually have a game. I was not with him, so I don't know how this happened, but he did come home with The Legend of Zelda. So we open it up, and we have this beautiful gold cartridge. I had played at other friends' house, and every other cartridge was boring gray with a little picture. Not this one. It was gold. Whoa! My father puts it in, starts playing, and that's when it hit me. This is a one-player game. I may never, ever get to use the NES.
Rest in peace, Luigi fans.
Yes. Anywho, he eventually stopped playing. I would be willing to bet Grandpa doesn't even remember playing the game. Has no memory of this, but that is how a 9-year-old Jimmy remembers it, not being able to play the NES that came home. So, since the original Legend of Zelda, which was amazing, I love, we still have the cartridge upstairs, several versions, stories of Zelda have come across. I have not played all of them. James has played most of them, if not all of them, completed most of them. We do agree that there is one that stands out above any other as the worst, which is The Adventures of Link. Still horrible. Yes, I have played.
It's by no means a bad game. We just don't like it.
I played it on the original NES, and now I've played it on the Switch with the
Switch Online.
Yes, it's still a horrible game, but we both love this universe. We love this world. James is far more versed in it. I just started playing
Tears of the Kingdom.
He has completed Tears of the Kingdom. That's where we are in our game playing stage now.
It's if I may talk about my introduction to the series, my earliest memories were playing Wind Waker on the GameCube. I barely remember doing anything. I probably walked in circles because I was like 3 or 4. But I vividly remember the cell shading of the game and like Link on an island. And for a time, I really didn't care about Zelda. I was being like a rebellious teenager at the age of, 7? I was like, oh, my dad likes that? Ew. And then in a very strange series of events, I got a copy of The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. And I fell in love with it. I thought it was this fantastic masterpiece of a game, and I still think it is. And it introduced me to this beautiful series of games about a funny dude in green who goes and kills a dude with red hair, or a mask, or a midget, or another dude with red hair. It's weird, but I fell in love with the series. So we're going to try and see how the series has evolved over time from Zelda 1 to Tears of the Kingdom.
So after The Legend of Zelda, the next iteration that I just remember playing start to finish, absolutely falling in love with, it is still my favorite version, and this is probably because I haven't really played it since in my memory, but the Ocarina of Time. It was just a phenomenal gameplay. It really opened up this world of Zelda where it wasn't side-scrolling or watching overview. It was a world that you could just explore, and me and Epona, we explored. We went all over.
And it's incredible knowing that we went from Zelda 1 to Zelda 2 to A Link to the Past, which A Link to the Past is almost the perfect successor to Zelda 1, because it's taking this world you have and turning it into a livable world. And then you have Link's Awakening, which essentially says, screw Zelda, we're just going to do what we want, and make it a really fun, existential, heady game. And then you have Ocarina of Time, which is almost a perfect translation of A Link to the Past. So it's interesting to see how each Zelda game up to Ocarina of Time takes the big blueprint before and just retranslate it into something else.
And I should mention at the time, I was able to play a lot of these games because he wasn't with us yet. So, Ocarina of Time, fantastic. Which is next? And this is where my memory is horrible. Was it Wind Waker or was it?
Wind Waker was next.
So, Wind Waker, phenomenal game.
Majora's Mask. I completely forgot about Majora's
I
Mask.
still to this day have only ever played the opening to Majora's Mask. James is a huge fan of Majora's Mask.
Best Zelda game.
Loves it. I've only played the opening. It fell through the cracks. I was more of a console game and didn't really do handhelds. He has played all of them, whether it be handhelds, console, what have you. So my next step was Wind Waker. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I did have reservations when I first started it because we're coming off of Ocarina of Time, my favorite all time, to this doesn't seem like it's in the same timeline. The art is completely different. But then when we get to the mechanics of it with the boat and you're sailing and all the gameplay, thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved it. Again, this young man was not with us, so I was able to go start to finish pretty much uninterrupted until we get to
Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess, which again, thoroughly enjoyed. Again, understanding it is different. It's not the same. It's still not Ocarina's Time. It's completely different. But now at this point, I do have a child. So starting and finishing, there was a lot more time in between.
Very much so. And to add on, in Wind Waker, if you pick up on the little bits and pieces, it is the same storyline from Ocarina of Time. And it's so cool to watch, in my opinion, this Link, who is essentially a nobody, who proves himself to the gods that he is worthy of the Triforce and the Master Sword, and he fights Ganondorf, something which should be technically impossible. And I love the fact that the story of Wind Waker and Link's Wind Waker is also the story of Wind Waker as a video game, struggling to prove itself as a valid title in the series. And the best way to put it is, Wind Waker is like that one kid who's oddly obsessed with like death and very grim topics. Well, Twilight Princess is like the angsty teen who's actually really soft but doesn't want to admit it. I love Twilight Princess's ending because it is just grand spectacle, but dear God, building to it is a nightmare.
Now, in my mind, between Twilight Princess and what was the next console game?
Skyward Sword.
What was the first one that came out on Switch that was supposed to be Wii U?
Breath of the Wild.
So between Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild, there was a huge gap. And again, this gap in my personal life can be attributed to children.
Hi.
So did not really play another game until then. And when that game came out, again, it was similar to my response to Ocarina of Time, where, oh my Lord, we are now in this almost open universe of playing in the Zelda universe that is phenomenal, incorporating a lot of what we've had from the very first Zelda game to now. And the story was phenomenal. The gameplay was phenomenal. The characters were phenomenal. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Personally, I accidentally solved the game. I know this sounds weird, but I was just going around trying to complete all the side quests and accidentally ended up in the castle and fell through the roof and didn't realize I'm at the end.
Oh, oops.
Which was kind of disappointing. I wasn't planning on doing that, and all of a sudden I beat Ganon, and I'm like, oh, damn it. Okay. Besides that, really loved this open world we were in. I love that it was on the Switch. I get that it was geared to the Wii U, but it was ported to the Switch. I loved that you could play it on the TV, handheld, take it with you. It was a phenomenal game.
It was stunning. And to quickly fill in that little gap of time between Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, we had games like Four Swords Adventures, Minish Cap, Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes. All of those were great. The only one I'm really well versed in is A Link Between Worlds, as discussed. It's fantastic. If anything, it's one of the few games that holds an incredibly deep amount of like Zelda lore, and it's a good game. Everybody should play it. It might be a little hard now that the 3DS is dead, rest in peace, but if you get the opportunity to play it, you should. Now then there's Skyward Sword. And oh boy, is Skyward Sword a bit of a heated topic, because tons of people love it because it's a great Zelda story and it innovates on the series conventions by starting this whole legend. But there's motion controls and it's a little annoying. I personally haven't gotten through it far enough to comment on the story, but I can say the motion controls are rough, but they don't ever get bad enough to the point where I want to lodge a Wii remote in a TV screen. And so now, with that out of the way, we come to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I originally had a so-so relationship with Breath of the Wild. I was hot off the heels of, I think at that point in time, I had just finished my first playthrough of Majora's Mask, and I love Majora's Mask. It's got very, very innovative dungeon design. It's incredible in my opinion. It was, to me, this perfect distillation of Zelda in a very avant-garde fashion. And so to see Breath of the Wild essentially throw everything out the window, it was hard for me to adjust to, because I essentially had to take everything I built up from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and be like, okay, well, none of that matters anymore. But as I've grown with it and played it, I think it is this stellar game that is inherently Zelda at its core without sacrificing what makes it Zelda, because it's still an adventure open world game where you just goof around and find stuff, and eventually you might accidentally happen upon the big bad. And it's, for a Zelda game that's trying to honor the original game, it does so well integrating a story. It is not easy to write a non-linear story, but Breath of the Wild nails it.
It is. It's a fantastic story. It may usurp, in my opinion, Ocarina of Time for me. It brought me back into long version video game play, which may sound weird, but nowadays, given my schedule, given kids, like Fortnite, Call of Duty, that's what I do, because you can play a game and then you're out. You don't need to play anymore, which is one of my problems with now the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. I can't dedicate the time that needs to be. But Breath of the Wild was so good, so much fun. I was very excited when they announced the sequel. James has played it all the way through. He has given his recommendation with some hesitation at certain things, but really did enjoy it, especially on the first time around.
I absolutely did. Also, I would like to add that the Breath of the Wild's visual fidelity is a paradox considering the platform it's on, because it looks incredible and yet it's on the Switch. So even if you don't care about the story and you're like a more kind of like visual person, play Breath of the Wild for the visuals, because it is beautiful. And with Tears of the Kingdom, even more so, now that you have like this open sky, it is so beautiful to like sit on a sky island and just watch the sunrise and sunset, because it's, I know it's silly, but it's like for a video game, it's such a stunning atmosphere. And I love what Tears of the Kingdom does with Breath of the Wild, and essentially does what Breath of the Wild did to the rest of Zelda, throws it out the window and says, let's do this now. I love the building mechanics. I love like the sheer insanity you're given with like how much you can do with the physics engine. And it's so much fun to just build like a giant spring that launches you into the sky, and then, I don't know, make a bomb launcher. It's just, there's so much you can do that is so much fun. And while I do have my personal gripes with the story, I think for anyone who hasn't played a previous Zelda game, it is a must play.
So let us know. That is our Zelda story. Let us know your Zelda story, and let us know in the comments below which one's your favorite.